Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldsschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with manicexpression.com, thecomicbookcast.com, the reopened Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page, and the PlayStation YouTube channel.
On the Lord of Hero, Nick. On the Lord of Hero, Nick. On the Ricky Ticky Low while living number one Nickelodeon. Nick, Nickelodeon. Bom, 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 Nickelodeon. Bom, 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 Nickelodeon. Aren't you glad you got your Nickelodeon?
Is your home a Nickelodeon home?
The preceding editorial message does not necessarily represent the family of fine Nickelodeon products and services.
Yes, it does!
Nickelodeon, the first and only network for kids.
On the Ricky Dicky Love while living number one Nickelodeon.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. As usual, I am Patricia, and continuing the celebration of Nickelodeon's 35th anniversary with a special guest. You may know him as the founder of the Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon, and if you follow the Nickelodeon Slimecast podcast YouTube channel, he has appeared in parts 3 and 4 of Nick at 35. It is none other than Clint. Oh, welcome aboard, Clint.
Thank you, Patricia. It's nice to be here.
So, I need to know about how you got started in creating your Facebook page.
Well, it all started in February of 2013. And in February of 2013, an infamous show by the name of Nick Studio 10 came out. And everybody's already made their jokes about Nick Studio 10. They've already said how horrible Nick Studio 10 is. Really, Nick Studio 10 has been the show that there's basically been a complete consensual hatred towards in terms of Nickelodeon. Like, for the new shows like Fanboy and Chum Chum and Breadwinners and such like that, there's usually at least a small group of fans who will defend it or find it, like, amusing in some fashion. But Nick Studio 10 just seemed to be that one show that everyone hated, and because of that, it didn't last too long. I was watching one of the videos about it, which was by the Archfiend on YouTube, who I've, grown to like more because I think he's funny. Eventually, he talked about a page called Ban Nick Studio 10, which is basically, it's still there and everything, which is basically a page that basically talked about how bad Nick Studio 10 was. And I checked it out, and I liked it, of course, like everybody else who watched the video probably did, because he talked about how that page had more likes than Nick Studio 10's actual apparent Facebook page. And so when I got there, I was posting comments and, just overall, getting along with people, and really just having a good time. It was good, I was getting really all the top comments, I guess because I was clever to people, I don't know. And really I started to get the attention of the admins there. They were pretty much saying that, hey, you're pretty funny, and I did go to them. I said, I like this page, and I've never been an admin for anything before, and could I maybe try it out? And I was saying that, people seem to like me on the page, they're liking all my comments, and I think maybe I could be an entertaining admin for them. Basically, I just wanted to contribute, like any admin usually would, and they eventually agreed, and they set me up as admin, and I became admin on Ban Nick Studio 10, and that was really my first break as a Facebook admin. I was an admin for maybe 2 or 3 months. So I really was just posting statuses, and, and I did this thing where I looked in the other section, and I saw people's photoshops and people's edits about Nick Studio 10, and basically making fun of it, and they really seemed good. So what I would also do is I would share those. I would put them on the main page and say this was made by so-and-so, and I think it's really cool, expressing the hatred toward Studio 10 like everybody else, and they really liked it. They really liked how it was shared and how they, contributed, and I felt good doing that. But for Nick Studio 10, it ended really badly. At least, in the way it ended. What happened was, it all started when I posted a picture of, I don't know if you've seen it. It's a pretty viral picture that's been around. It's a crab getting hit with a hammer, and the caption is, "Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" And basically, I thought it was funny. Somebody in the other section posted it, and I just basically said, "No, this is funny. This should get a laugh out of the fans." And when I posted it, it did really well. It got over 100 likes, and that was really good for the page, because it had, when I was there, it had over 1,000. So it showed that a good chunk of the community liked it, except for one person who was really up in arms about it. She seemed very she was basically saying that it was animal abuse and such like that, but everybody was disagreeing with her, and I was just pretty much trying to defuse the situation. And you are going to get fans like that who, are outspoken and they disagree with something, and basically I was just trying to be as civil as possible, which would transcend to my page. And basically, the situation cooled down, and I basically forgot about it. The big second incident that happened was one of the admins was posting pictures of herself on the page. Basically, I just saw it the one day. She's posting literal just pictures of herself, had nothing to do with anything. Basically, she was... I think even the one caption was, I'm a like whore or something like that. Basically just, I'm sure it was meant to be a joke, but when I saw it, my first reaction was to delete it, because it had nothing to do with the page, it had nothing to do with anything. It was just a picture of her, which, if you're going to do that, post it on your own wall, is what I always thought. It wasn't an admin pick either, because she did that before. Now, the male admin came to me, and the founder came to me, and they said, "Hey, did you delete her picture?" And I said, yes. I owned up to it. I was like, if it was a mistake, I'm sorry. And I was okay. I was clean with it. I was open with it. I was absolutely, had no problem saying it. I said I thought it didn't really fit the page, and I was just trying to help, basically. And they said, okay. They were fine with it. And basically, that's how that conversation ended. They really just stopped talking. They said okay, and they left, and eventually, apparently another one of her posts got removed, and basically, during that small span of a week, I think I messaged her, once, and she was, she seemed very bitter towards me. She was like, don't care, bye, to me, and I was just like, I don't know, what's her problem? I didn't know if she was still angry over the first picture being deleted, which I did apologize for, but I just wasn't sure. So eventually, I'm just, literally, this is what happened. I was on the page. I think I posted a status 4 minutes ago on that, and I was just muddling around, looking at the comments, looking at the feeds, notifications like I usually do. I basically keep that clean because I guess it's a little bit of an OCD thing. And basically what happened was I refreshed the page, and all my admin status was just up and gone. And it took me a second, I blinked a few times, and I was just like, wait, what? So I refreshed again to make sure everything was right, and when I looked, there was a new status, which basically said, Clint has been banned for deleting content that he wasn't supposed to delete. He will be missed, sorta. And it was by the girl admin. So, basically, she tried to be you could see how bitter she was at me. And I was just like, wait, what the hell's happening? Like, I didn't get any warning or any notification or anything from anyone. And when I went to her, she was a complete, like, I don't want to curse on here, but she
no, you can. Unlike Nickelodeon Slimecast podcasts, you can curse on casual chats. We've had, we're adults here, so you can basically say that she was a bitch or whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, that's basically what she was to me. She was very immature. She was younger than me, but she was very immature nonetheless. I was being very mature. I was being very civil. I wanted to get to the bottom of what was happening. And basically, she was just being a baby, a brat, basically. And when I went to the male admin and then the founder removed me as a friend immediately. The founder basically wanted to avoid any conflict, which isn't the right way to handle a situation. So I talked to the male admin, and I basically said, well, you came to me about that, and I was honest with you. And then they said another one of her pictures was deleted, and I'm just like, okay, well, I didn't do it. If I did do it, I would tell you. Basically, that's what happened. They basically, because I did it the first time, they automatically blamed me the second time, and that's just unfair. Because, either one of them or, there was another admin on the page too, but they never posted, but they were apparently there. And that's one thing I don't like. I don't like multiple admins, because if something's deleted, then you don't know who it was, and then there's finger pointing, and then something like this happens. And I just happened to be on the receiving end of it this time. So basically, this really brought me down. This whole situation. This whole situation was just a whirlwind, unneeded. It was just awful, honestly. It really brought me down. Like, it just how the whole thing was handled. Just really bitter taste in my mouth, and really gave me a contempt for their page. I'm not mad at them anymore. Basically, they chose her over me, because basically, apparently, from what one of them told me, I can't remember, she said it was either him or me, and they chose her. I shared content, and I got fans happy, and such like that. I didn't want to put myself over her, because I really didn't want to feel like I was above any other admin here, because they were there before me. But, like, if they were going to choose somebody, especially after the conversation I had with her, she was clearly mature and clearly in the wrong, it just got to me. As this was going on, my one friend got into my Facebook. She was really upset about this. She got into my Facebook and looked at the conversations, because she wanted to see, like, our chats, like, if they ever warned me about stuff or ever told me about stuff, and none of them ever did. They never gave me a warning that I was going to be banned, never gave me a warning about anything. It just happened, and they ran. It's like abandoning a child in a forest and then just running. That's basically an analogy I can think of. So she got all of the chat and coupled it in on a site, basically. I'm not sure if it was Tumblr or another thing, but basically just to show, because she basically wanted to show me and show them that I am not in the wrong. And basically by showing it all the chat, she basically gave it to me, and she said, here, you're still on the page, you're just not an admin. Post it to the other section, and, let the people decide if you were wrong or not. And I said, well, all right. The other section on that page was actually very active. So I gave my say. I posted why I was no longer an admin, why I was no longer, able to post. And basically, I just asked the fans, am I in the wrong? I want you to look at my conversations with the male admin, and the founder, and I want you to tell me who was in the wrong. And everybody who saw it said that I was right. Everybody. And that thing got like 37 comments. And basically that gave me a confidence boost. Basically saying that, hey, maybe this isn't all in my head. Because after a while, it does feel like that when, like, it's 3-on-1, and you kind of feel like you're backed into a corner, and it kind of, you know, you don't think it's your fault. You still don't think that, but when you're in that sort of mentality, it's like, how am I supposed to prove it to people when it's 3 against 1? Well, that was my way. That apparently ticked off the female admin even more, and it ticked off the male admins a bit too, because they were like, oh, it's an invasion of privacy, and you weren't supposed to post that. And it's just like, well, what do you want me to do? Because basically, you are the ones who put me in this situation, and when I'm calling you out on it, you're the ones that are acting immature. Basically, they didn't want to look bad. That's the best way I can sum it up, is they did not want to look bad for their fans and for handling the situation, but they handled it poorly, and they had to reap the consequences. They basically thought I was just going to go away, but my friend didn't allow that to happen, and I didn't really want it to happen anyway. Like, I'm not mad at her for doing that. I thanked her for doing that. I would, if she did it again, I would post it again. The female admin started to get angry, and she started to, you know, post that I'm leaving the page, and yada yada. And when she posted that, people were, like, starting to, like, say, oh, don't leave the page, you're such a good admin. And, you know, why would you be leaving the page? And basically people who didn't see my post. And I think that was her plan, honestly. She wanted to get empathy. So I started posting it on that feed, and she got even angrier. And people, you know, were fighting with me, and they're like, who are you? After that, I was banned, basically, for doing that. I talked to the male admin a bit more, and he was like, she was in a bit of a dark place. You know, she was apparently contemplating suicide, yada, yada, yada. And I'm just like, you know, that's bullshit. I mean, if she's contemplating suicide, I feel bad for her. You know, my heart's with her. You know, I've had friends who have contemplated suicide, and it's no laughing matter. So I'm like, so if she is contemplating suicide, then I feel for her, but that doesn't give her the right to act the way she acts. Saying, you know, that I'm contemplating suicide does not give you the automatic go-ahead to be a bitch to people. And, you know, it just doesn't. I mean, at all. You know, when my friends were contemplating suicide, they didn't lash out at anybody. They were depressed. And basically, I just said that if she's contemplating suicide, I said, as I said, my heart went out to her, and I wasn't trying to attack her even further for that, and I wasn't trying to upset her with my actions over that. But she's the one that started the fight. She's the one that instigated it. If she's lying about that, that makes her even worse. This also got under my skin. He said, you know, you just gotta look back at all the good times you had on the page instead of focusing on all the bad. And I'm like, well, you know, it's kind of hard to focus on any good times I had on the page when you did this to me. And basically, conversations ended like that. I was still pretty broken up about it. And basically the same friend who did all that stuff for me said, you know, you have people who would follow you over on Bannick Studio 10. You have support. You have people who said you were right, and he basically said that you were a good admin. Because it also made me question that if I could be an admin. So she basically said, well, you start your own page. And I was just like, I didn't want to start another Nick Studio 10 page, because then I just thought they would just think that I'm spiting them. And another reason I didn't want to start a Nick Studio 10 page is because I think it was like the second time they were canceled. And basically the popularity of the page was going to die down. I also didn't want to copy them. I didn't want to feel like I was doing it to spite them. I wanted to feel like I was doing it for me. And that's basically why I was doing it. And so basically I was just thinking, like, I still care about Nickelodeon, and it's still pretty much crap. I always look around on Facebook, and I always see these I miss the old Nickelodeon, bring back old shows, the new shows suck sort of types of pages, like Nick Studio 10. but like classic Nickelodeon pages and such like that. The biggest one being, of course, the Nickelodeon logo, which I still think is the biggest one, which like has over 30,000 likes now. And it's just like, well, they're posting about good times on Nickelodeon. Some of them are posting about the awful times that Nickelodeon has become. I can do both. The Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon sounds like a perfect name. So eventually, I just created the page. First cover photo and the first profile picture were awful looking because I was just really computer savvy. Eventually, I was just like, okay, it's done. It's started. What do I do to become like more noticed? What do I do to become more intricate and like stand out from the rest of these pages that are also trying to grow? Basically, I didn't want to become the Nickelodeon logo. I was just like, how can I become popular like that? Like, how can I get fans and, just show people that I'm different, basically. So eventually, just a day after I started, my friend Mark, who helps on the page still frequently, came over from Nick Studio 10 and basically said, if you ever need any help, just message me. And I said, I need a lot of help, actually. My first few, posts of pictures were, not bad per se, but they were basically just, I grabbed them, the first things I saw on Google Images, and, aside from my status posts. And I basically said, yeah, I need any help that I could get. And he gave me a profile picture. He said, how's this? And I was just like, that is beautiful. I will take that. And I post, and he basically, to this day, he basically gives me great, original content that he makes himself in, Photoshop and such like that. And it's just beautiful content. You've seen, if you see my profile picture and my cover photo right now, he did both of those. He's an amazing Photoshop artist, and I honestly, you can't even tell, his edits. He's just that good, and I'll always say he's that good. I've known him for over a year now, and he's still that good. And I would get others later. I would get page helper Donnie, who does a great Photoshop work as well. He's on the level of Mark. If Mark can't do something, I go to Donnie. Page helper Michael, he's also good at editing. He does some good pictures. And page helper Marcia, who also helps with pictures. Basically helping my inept ability to sometimes create an image, and I basically just give them my idea and they bring it to life. I eventually also found a caption site. So I would find, instead of just finding memes that are already created, I would create my own memes as well, with my own captions. And for the most part, those have been very successful. So basically what I did was, and I still do it from time to time, is I mercifully advertise myself, advertise myself on lesser Nick pages, on bigger Nick pages. I believe I posted on Is Mayonnaise an Instrument, which was a Patrick-like page, Nickelodeon page, and I said, and I also didn't want to fall into that group, and you know the group I'm talking about, the S for S, the share for share. I didn't want to fall into that group. I wanted to show that I was different, so I would post hey, I'm a new up-and-coming page, my name's called The Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon, this is what I want to do, this is what I am doing, I have original content, such like that. I would offer shares back, or, even something along those lines if they wanted it. Sometimes I wouldn't need to. They basically said, share yourself to the Nickelodeon logo. And I didn't really know, I knew Nickelodeon logo existed because, of course, he was very popular, and he still is. And I just said, alright, because he said it, and he said that he would give me a lot of likes and such like that. So I was just like, okay, I guess I can give it a shot. So I went over to him, and I, gave my whole, description, explanation, and he automatically shared me. I guess he definitely saw something in the page, and he still does. to this day, he says it's one of his favorite pages to support. He really likes my page, and that makes me happy. Basically, he's saying that go like this new Nickelodeon page. It's really cool looking. Well, I wasn't sure if my page was going to be successful. I wasn't sure how big it was going to get. But I got over 500 likes in a week because of Nickelodeon logo, basically, sharing me. And it was just a great feeling that I got that many likes that quickly. It just gave me even more confidence to do what I was doing. Just just so quickly, too. Some pages, it takes them forever to get 500 likes, and those people are just as active and just as determined as I am, and I just put myself out there. I was all over pages, and I eventually just got, the breaks. And basically, after that, I would get another admin job on the now deceased Larry the Lobster page, which had over 30,000 likes, and he said I could tag my page in every post every post, and I was like, wow, really? And that gave me even more likes, and really my page was just a very fast-growing page at that point. It grew phenomenally. And this was even before, before I would get my even bigger breaks with Pojo and the Neckbeards on Facebook, which, they run, hundreds of Facebook pages, honestly, on Facebook. And, really, that's basically how the rise and fall of Nickelodeon started. Really, it started quick. It didn't dilly-dally, that's for sure. The pages that shared me believed in me, and I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want to make them think that they shared something that would go away really quickly. And I didn't, because I kept I kept the page, fresh. I kept it interesting, and basically, it grew to mountains that I never thought that it would grow to, and I'm so proud of being able to do that, and, especially after what happened with Studio 10, I was just so happy that I was able to just show that I could do it, that I could create this page, I could keep the page going, I could still get new fans, I get new fans every day now, and it's just a good feeling, and, that's basically how it all started.
Wow, and that took about over 20 minutes of discussing about how everything went, and I gotta say, it just went from up and down and all about, and from looking at your page and comparing it to the band Nick Studio 10, having over 23,000 likes, and them still having 2,100 likes, and Nick Studio 10 as a punching bag is pretty much over with. I say that you've come quite a long way, and that you should feel really proud for it.
I do, and they post different stuff now, and basically post about how bad Nick is now, and, yada yada like that, and funny story, actually, because I still, pop in from time to time to see how their page is doing. Basically, my friend told me that the female admin is gone. The female admin got booted, basically, for being a bitch, from what I heard from people. It's they picked her over me, and that was, I could say a consequence. But it basically just shows, that's the decision you went with. And, I mean, I feel bad, I thought maybe that she would, maybe get better, maybe she would prove that she was better than me, because she obviously thought it. But no, she's apparently gone, and I was just like, oh, well, I guess that's the way that story ends, doesn't it? I guess karma is the best way I could put it.
So, continuing on, who were your main influences behind doing the rise and fall of Nickelodeon?
Nickelodeon logo was definitely one.
Okay.
My stay on Band X Studio 10 actually gave me confidence to do it. They were, as much bad time as I had on there, they were basically an influence to say that I could be an admin and I could do this. my influence was also basically just watching how bad Nickelodeon became. Seeing all these new shows like Fanboy and Chum Chum and Marvin and all these other bad shows that I could say something about. And I could, not just say that Marvin sucks. It's the stupidest show ever created. I always thought of myself as somebody who could be a bit analytical about why it's bad and why people hate it. Because I'm an aspiring writer, I took writing classes, I do other reviews on, I did other, YouTube reviews, and I posted other places about my thoughts on things, and basically, I just thought that, I could bring something a little bit different to the table. I could really talk more in depth about why certain aspects of Nickelodeon suck now, and that does get me some comments like, oh, you're taking this too seriously, or it's just a cartoon, and stuff like that. And I try to ignore those comments because I think those comments are really stupid, because they just don't seem to understand what I'm trying to come across, that I care about Nickelodeon so much that I'm willing to talk about what they're doing wrong and why it's wrong. And for really the most part, everybody agrees with me. There are people sometimes who will disagree, and I review a lot of new SpongeBob's, and they'll be like, I like that episode, and I always try to say that that's your opinion. This is my opinion, this is my page, and I'm just saying, what I think. If you think differently, that's completely fine. And that was something else I did differently. Some pages I would look around and I would see, when people hated on them and they bashed them, they would be, really crude back, mean-spirited, fuck you, you're an asshole, and it's just I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be somebody who could be civil, and even if we disagreed, you could still have fun on the page, you could still do stuff, you could still look at pictures and enjoy them, just because we disagree on this one aspect doesn't mean we'll disagree on all of them. And basically, that was something else that helped me, because apparently I was a very rare page for something like that. I was very rare for, people to see civility on the internet. What the hell is this? Basically, just, basically not exploding at them. It takes a lot for me to get really angry at people. Usually, my most hateful comments come when I post a My Little Pony picture, but those comments have really died down lately, which is nice, because, I just hate when I see comments like that. It's just I understand if you don't like the show. I understand, for any pictures. I understand if you don't like the show or the moment or what I'm talking about. It's just don't ruin the fun for everybody else. It's just if you don't have anything nice to say, you don't have to say it. Or if you have something, of importance or of substance to say it. Don't just say this sucks, or this is gay, or you're stupid. Actually say why you don't like it. And I'll just say that's fine. That's completely respectable. Nickelodeon logo was one of my influences again. Really, it was Nickelodeon logo who showed me the way to do it, while still being more active, because he's very sporadic in his posts. Banding Studio 10 showed me how to do it, basically gave me the opportunity to post, and basically, and it also showed me how to be interactive with fans, and that's another thing I took when I looked around. Some pages are not active with their fans at all. They just post pictures and that's it. Fans comment stuff and they ask questions, and I see their inboxes are full and they never answer them and never respond. And I also didn't want to be that. I wanted to be as interactive as possible, show fans that, hey, I care about them, I care about their questions, I answer every inbox I get. I don't respond to every comment, but I respond to some where I think I could post a funny quip, or if they have a question, or if they need clarification on something, I'll post it. And some fans are shocked that I post to them, oh my god, you responded, you're such a big page, and it shows that pages do ignore their fans, and it's a sad thing to see, and it's I don't want to be that. And if I can influence other pages to be interactive with their fans as well, then that shows me that I'm also doing something right. I wanted to have a lot more variety. I wanted to show other cartoons and other cartoon media, and basically not. I wanted to keep myself as least trapped as possible, basically. I wanted to, broaden my horizons just a bit. I still post like a lot of Nick content, but I'll throw in that non-Nick post here and there. Sometimes my epic character battles of history, which is something else I'm very proud of. Mark and Donnie both really came up with that concept, and it's really shown to be really strong, and people really like it. And I'm, continuing to broaden that horizon because I really like the idea. Basically, sometimes they will have 2 non-Nick characters and stuff like that, and sometimes I'll get the post of like, why are you posting this on a Nickelodeon page, and I'll respond back as to why. And it's funny that I get those because if you ever look on a big like Nickelodeon themed page, like over half, if not all of their content will not be Nickelodeon related. It'll be like funny pictures and memes and stuff like that. And that's another thing I didn't want to fall into. I really wanted to keep it like mostly Nickelodeon related or cartoon related, just to like keep it in that sort of like same center of like what the page is and what it will be. And basically, those are my influences and basically like my learning steps along the way.
Okay, great. What would you consider yourself as? Would you consider yourself as a Nick kid, a Cartoon Network kid, a Disney Channel kid, or you basically are a combination of all three, or maybe a little bit of maybe the hub, or a little bit of Boomerang here and there? So what would you consider yourself mostly as?
Well, I don't consider myself a hub or Boomerang kid because they're not on my television network. They're my friends and stuff. Like when I go over there, they have like the Boomerang and or Nicktoons, and I'll watch that. But on my regular channel, I never had any of them. I do consider myself a Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon kid. Grew up huge with Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon was my first, I will say that. Nickelodeon was the first one I really watched. Cartoon Network was second because I didn't get Cartoon Network for the first few years of my childhood. Like, it wasn't on my cable. It eventually became, like, more broader on cable when it started to become more popular and get more original content and more, like, people picked it up. And then Disney Channel, I think, was my... maybe Disney Channel was my second. It's been so long, but they were all really, like, there at once. And, if something wasn't good on Cartoon Network at the time... or I would go to Nick, and if what was on Nick I didn't like, I would go to Disney Channel. There was so much variety back then, and basically, all three of them. All three of them had influences. All three of them have influences on the page. You see Disney, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon characters all in the epic character battles. You see Nick, Cartoon Network, and Disney memes posted. Mostly Nick, though, because, it is still a Nick page, and I keep my content mostly Nick. But really, all three, and really, Cartoon Network really had all three networks. It's really bad to see how much they fell in like the 2000s. Cartoon Network, I think, has really stepped up since 2009 when they did CN Real. They've really bounced back like in a big way ever since they did that, because that was just one of the biggest mistakes that they could ever make, honestly. Nickelodeon hasn't bounced back. They just keep falling. And Disney Channel, they're doing all right. I mean, they also fell pretty bad, but with shows like Gravity Falls and Wander Over Yonder, you can tell that they are trying to get their cartoons back to what they were. So I give Disney credit for that. So really, when I look at it now, it's like I was all three of them as a kid. And if I were to rank them now, it would be Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, and then Nickelodeon. So basically, I care about all three networks.
Okay. And what would you say were your very first shows that you ever saw with those three channels?
Oh, boy. For Nickelodeon, Rugrats. Watched Rugrats all the time. Little Bear on Nick Jr., Little Bear and Blue's Clues. Basically everything on Nickelodeon I watched, like when it first came out, like Rugrats and Doug and All Real Monsters and Angry Beavers, all of them. I remember watching all of them as a kid. Cartoon Network, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, The classic cartoons that they would show. They showed a lot of classic cartoons in their earlier days.
Yeah, that was when Cartoon Network had the rights for all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Yeah, and they would show a lot of them, Johnny Bravo too, and such like that. So I watched a lot of those. Disney Channel, a lot of the Disney Channel shows like Winnie the Pooh. He had his own spin-off show. Little Mermaid had her own spin-off show. A lot of the Disney characters had spin-off shows, and I watched a lot of those. Recess. I loved Recess. What else? Lloyd in Space was another one. Even as they got Dave the Barbarian was good. I wish that show ended way too early. Even as they got on, I still watched shows in the 2000s that were good, but yeah.
That sounds like pretty much everybody, when they ever talk about Nickelodeon, they always watch the 90s Nickelodeon. With the exception of Peggy Sue Clay, I have never heard anybody talking about fond memories over the 80s Nickelodeon shows.
Yeah, and that really comes from the 90s, sort of the quote-unquote golden era of Nickelodeon, where they really started to, break out with the cartoons and all the original series, and the 80s were definitely an era for cartoons, a good era with Thundercats and Transformers and He-Man and all that. But 90s is really when cartoons really just started to get even more of a boom and prominence, with Nickelodeon getting all their Nicktoons and Cartoon Network getting all their original shows and Disney Channel with their original content. Cartoons just exploded in the 90s, honestly.
I think the reason why is because that when you look back on cartoons from the 70s and 80s, the 70s were mostly just focusing on doing cartoons based off of movies, and a lot of the cartoons that they did have were trying to copy off of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons like Scooby-Doo, and then you had the 80s cartoons where it was all about the toys and the action figures. Yeah,
it really was. Really was about all the action figures that you could get with all them shows.
Yeah, and it wasn't until, The Simpsons and the Ren and Stimpy show that pretty much pushed what a cartoon should be. Should be more expressive, should be more creative.
And though both of those shows were still marketed for toys and such, yeah, it was more about the characters in the shows instead of, collect them all.
Exactly. Now, I know you've written a lot of articles about, how Nickelodeon's going downhill and stuff like that. What do you think are the mistakes that they've done that got them to this position, and what would you do to fix it?
The mistakes I think that they've done, the biggest one to me is the live-action shows that they've attempted. The Thundermans, Haunted Hathaways, Marvin Marvin, Every Which Way. Really, when it comes to Nick, when I think about it, the only one you should let do live-action shows is Dan Snyder. Just because he seems to be the only one who can be successful with it. These other people who try live-action shows and try to be Dan Snyder and try to be funny like him, they don't work. They don't work. And definitely, when I speak of Marvin Marvin, I also speak of when Fred got his own movies and his own series, and they tried that. That was a huge mistake. Crookshank got out of there as quick as he honestly could on it. It just felt like he got his paychecks and he just bolted because he knew that his popularity was dying really quickly. And people didn't like him when he was even first on the network, when he made his iCarly debut. And nobody really liked him even then. The second biggest is keeping SpongeBob going as much as they have. I think that they've run SpongeBob into the ground. He was really their... ever since the Post movie, when Hillenburg left and all the creative influences left the network, left the show, SpongeBob just became a different show, and Nick has marketed it so much, and like we were just talking about how 80s cartoons, it was all about the toys and stuff. Well, SpongeBob, it's all about the merchandise. That's really what it's become. It hasn't become about the show anymore. It hasn't become about the humor. It's just become about, how much can we sell SpongeBob? Because SpongeBob is honestly their highest rated show and their highest rated performing show, and it will continue to be, unfortunately, even despite how bad it will get. And it's gotten bad. Just seeing reviews of it, it's really a shame. The third biggest problem with Nickelodeon, I think, is that they lost their humor. Like for Nickelodeon, it's all about, like when you see their even when you see the animated shows they make now, it's like, it's just really stupid humor, like really, really stupid humor, and it was never really like that. Nickelodeon shows had a lot more character than just like, farts are funny, or, that stupid bumper with the, with the bird crap on it, how they said, like, that's always funny, or people falling over is funny. It's just like, Nickelodeon's they're trying way too hard to make people laugh. We're back, in the 90s and 2000s, they really didn't have to try as hard, and they could also incorporate, like, different things into their shows. Like, when you look back at, like, Hey Arnold, like, they could be funny, but they could also teach a lesson. Where Rats could also be funny, but they could also teach a lesson. Even the shows, like, that people look back on, like, as, like, they were okay shows, like Rocket Power or Wild Thornberrys or Cat Dog, like, even they, like, could be funny and still teach lessons. Like, they didn't have to rely on being, like, brain dead, like, just, like, make you laugh, like, dumb stupidity, like Fanboy and Chum Chum or Breadwinners does now. Like, they didn't have to follow, like how it almost seems to be, like, they didn't have to follow, like, the buddy system that Nickelodeon seems to have, like the character can't survive on their own. They need, like a buddy, like Fanboy and Chum Chum or Breadwinners, or how Pig, Goat, Banana, Cricket or Bad Seed, it's all going to be groups, and there's nothing wrong with groups. Like, cartoons definitely do groups more often than not now, but it just seems like when you have a group of characters, you want them to be diverse, and you want them all to bring something different to a table. Like, Jimmy Neutron did that, and Hey Arnold definitely did that, and SpongeBob for the first few seasons did that, but when you look at it now, it's like they're both, like, the same character on Nickelodeon. Like, there's no character to either of them. They're just both just there existing and doing nothing, honestly. And basically, yeah, I think those are the biggest problems with Nickelodeon. I think that it's really the live-action shows are not funny, and even Dan Schneider with Sam and Cat, that show got canceled because the actors were in disputes. But really, the live-action shows, SpongeBob, and SpongeBob in another light also sort of, like, killing all the Nicktoons, like, becoming, like, the sole, like, because I said this in the one podcast, SpongeBob kind of became, like, the Nicktoon, where before, like, every Nicktoon was sort of, like, helping each other. It was equality. It was sort of like a place where all Nicktoons were doing something, and they were all popular, but SpongeBob just, like, completely took over, and I think in the end that also hurt the Nickelodeon block. It also hurt them in a way, like, it just destroyed, I think it destroyed their creativity. It's just like, oh, we just need more SpongeBob, and if you look at their network and you just see how many times SpongeBob's played, it shows you how bad it's gotten. Fairly Odd Parents is the same way. They've run out of ideas. That you see Poof and you see Sparky, and you just see that they've really run out of ideas, and now they're doing a third live-action movie, which I don't really like the live-action movies either. I think they're really stupid. That's what I think's wrong with Nickelodeon. How would I change it? Basically, I would try to go back to roots. Like, the first thing I think I would do is I would see what Klasky Csupo was doing, because Klasky Csupo was always reliable. They would always come out with good content. They always had a good show. They always knew morals, and they always knew all that. I would go back to them. I would say, hey, what have you guys been doing for the past few years? Like, what are your pilots? What are your shows? And I know they have them, because on their website they have a bunch of them. On their YouTube site they have tons of pilots. And I'll be like, okay, let's see what you have here. Let's see what we can work with. I would get rid of Breadwinners, and I would get rid of the live-action shows. Unless, I would maybe do something, I would maybe keep Dan Schneider there. Like a lot of people seem to agree with my idea that Neville and Gibby would be a better crossover idea than Sam and Cat, because they were together at the end of the one Sam and Cat special, and they seemed to really click. I would try maybe get Dan to do that. I would bring Craig Bartlett back to finish Hey Arnold, because Hey Arnold deserves a proper ending. It deserves at least the Jungle Movie special to be ended. I would end SpongeBob, eventually, because I know the network would die without SpongeBob. Like, it would have to still be played. I would try to make SpongeBob a bit better, though. I would try to, like, just see how it is, and even if the episodes aren't like as good anymore, I still know it's profitable, and I wouldn't get rid of it immediately just because I know the network would die. Like, it still needs this other stuff to grow, and despite how bad SpongeBob's become and how much it's just looked at with such contempt nowadays, I know that it would be needed to keep the network alive to get these ideas going. Craig Bartlett, he's coming out with a new show, Skyrat. I would still let that go because I have a lot of faith in his idea. I have a lot of faith in Skyrat. I hope that's one of the shows that helps Nickelodeon out. I have a lot of... That's like one of the only Nickelodeon things I'm actually looking forward to is Skyrat. I'm really looking forward to that. Just by the synopsis and what he said about it, I'm looking forward to it because it sounds like a show, basically. It sounds like an actual show, and it will be an actual show with continuity and plot and story, which is what I always like about Craig. I would make the Kids' Choice Awards better because this year's was just awful. Try and get better like movie specials because like they aired Ice Age and they made it up as like the big Nickelodeon premiere of Ice Age, and Ice Age has been aired around like poured out to like every network before Nickelodeon, and the same went with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Like ABC Family was airing it months before they ever did, and they made a big deal out of it. I would try and get better movie specials than that. And really just try and turn Nickelodeon around and look at like other content creators. Look at like what people at Cartoon Network are doing, or what people at Cartoon Hangover are doing. People on the internet with their pilots, and just see their ideas and give young up and comers a chance to basically show their light on a new network, on a big network, on a big stage. You have the floor. You're the future. You seem like you have something here. You seem like you have a good pilot here. And I want to, see what you can do. See if we can bring more fans here, show Nickelodeon in a better light than it has been the last few years, show Nickelodeon's coming back. It can compete with Cartoon Network, it can compete with Disney Channel and all the other networks, and have great content, and really just give the new generation of kids something to talk about when they get older, and, they can talk about how good this was. Give Nickelodeon the direction that it deserves.
Yeah, that definitely sounds good. And I do agree on some things that you said, but I also disagree on others. Like, well, I always say this to some people, and I always get mixed reactions with this, is that, we don't know what we want until we see it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with that a lot. Like, we don't know what we want until we see it. We don't know what we want until we see it, and sometimes if what we see, like what is presented to us, is all that there is, then that's all that we know. And that's why I fear for, the new generation of kids who watch this new Nickelodeon. But, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, because Nickelodeon had the opportunity to pick up Adventure Time, and they rejected it not only once, but twice. And they picked up...
I know they rejected it once for Fanboy and Chum Chum.
Yeah.
Twice, though? I didn't know twice. Jesus.
Yeah, Pendleton Ward, when he mentioned this on an interview with Frederator, he was talking about how he was rejected to show Adventure Time twice. And that's when Nickelodeon decided to pick up Fanboy and Chum Chum instead. Nickelodeon has been trying to regret that mistake ever since.
Trying to really make up for it, honestly, because when you look at what Adventure Time did, and I always say this to people, I always say, even if you don't like Adventure Time, it's really revitalized the cartoon industry. Like, people say Phineas and Ferb saved it, and I agree, Phineas and Ferb really did have a hand in saving it. Well, Adventure Time brought it back to me. They revitalized it. When you see all the stuff Adventure Time has created, Adventure Time itself is still going strong. They just had a really great season opener. Can't wait to see the rest of it. Steven Universe, which, was our storyboarder off Adventure Time. Clarence, another storyboarder off Adventure Time. Bravest Warriors, which is their internet series, and Being Puppy Cat, which will also be another internet series. All these people started on Adventure Time. They're all, and if you see them all in interviews, they're all young, up-and-coming people who know more what people want. When you look at some older people or, some corporate idiots up there in Nickelodeon thinking that they know what kids want, they don't know what kids want. They think they do, but they don't. These people, like Rebecca Sugar on Steven Universe, and she's created, she's already gotten awards for her storyboarding, and she's only a little bit older than I am. Skylar Page, the creator of Clarence, he's not that old. Pendleton Ward himself's only like in his early 30s. He's not that old. You know, it's a lot of that, and I'm not saying like every creator is going to be, like every bad creator is going to be old, because there's some, you know, the creator of Fanboy and Chum Chum ain't that old either, and he was awful, but like, when you look at that young talent, that young group of people that came out of Adventure Time, all those writers, it reminds you of old SpongeBob, and all the writers that came out of that went on to like write for new shows, like C.H. Greenblatt, he went on to create Chowder, and I always loved Chowder. See, that's where SpongeBob failed. SpongeBob failed because everybody left, and the writers that got to replace them are not good. The people that got to replace Adventure Time are great. Because, you know why? Because I think Pendleton knows what he's doing. He wouldn't just accept any old writer that would come on and say, I can write an Adventure Time episode, and it'll be, you know, it'll be great. You know, I just think Pendleton's a mad genius, I think. I think just Pendleton knows what he's doing. And I just think that, honestly, them picking Fanboy and Chum Chum over Pendleton and Adventure Time was their nail in the coffin, and honestly was Cartoon Network's resurrection. Yeah,
pretty much, because also Phineas and Ferb was as well.
Cartoons themselves were saved by Phineas and Ferb, honestly, because Phineas and Ferb was made in that intermediate where Nickelodeon was ending a lot of their shows, like Avatar was ending at around this point, and I think Drake and Josh ended at this point, and really there wasn't a lot of new content. Fanboy and Chum Chum came out around this time, and basically that's what happened there, and Cartoon Network were doing their awful CN Real phase, and they didn't come out with a new cartoon for that whole year. It was Destroy, Build, Destroy, and Out of Jimmy's Head, I think, came out around that time, and Fried Dynamite. When you look at animation, that was like one of the darkest points in animation history. And Phineas and Ferb really was that glue that held it together until Adventure Time came out.
Yeah, definitely. And also Disney Channel wasn't doing that well either. This was when like the High School Musical trilogies were ending its run.
Hannah Montana was also ending, I think.
Yeah, Hannah Montana was ending its run. That's So Raven was pretty much over, and that crappy spin-off Cory in the House came out. You know, the Sweet Life on Deck, whatever you want to call it, was ending its run. So, yeah, I mean, Disney Channel was pretty much really at its low point. Cartoon Network was at the beginning of its low point. Nickelodeon was at its low point as well, because Phineas and Ferb came out in 2007. And I just finished reviewing all the shows and movies that came out in 2007, and oh man, 2006 and 2007 were awful times. Like, there were no new shows in 2006 with the exception of Mr. Meaty. And 2007 pretty much had mediocre show after mediocre show after mediocre show. Just Jordan, Back at the Barnyard, El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera.
Some people actually like Back at the Barnyard and El Tigre and like the Mighty Bee, and like those are the ones that Nickelodeon tried to make stick, and they honestly just didn't. I honestly never liked them.
Well, yeah, I already stated on my reviews on the blog, which you guys can check out. But just a quick recap. El Tigre was underwhelming and a bit of a disappointment. Attack and the Power of Juju was a horrible disgrace to the video games, which at the time was pretty mediocre itself. And it came out
and now they're doing the Rabbids invasion, basically. So they haven't learned their lesson yet.
Nope, they haven't learned their lesson. They're coming out with things that are coming out 2 years late, which there hadn't been a new game of Attack and the Power of Juju since 2005, when they released Attack and the Power of Juju, the TV series, in 2007, aka one of the greatest years of video games ever, when, you know, Call of Duty 4, Super Mario Galaxy came out. And the Raving Rabbids came out in 2012, when the Rabbids were pretty much dead at that point, and Rayman had a huge comeback. So, yeah, I don't know who's in charge of doing their adaptations, but they should be fired.
Yeah, basically, when you think about the adaptations, they see that it's doing well now, and they don't think about the future. And when the future's here, the popularity for those shows has died.
Yeah.
I don't see the Raving Rabbids as an awful, awful show. I just see it as a waste of time. Like, there's nothing to it. It's just pointless slapstick where the rabbits kick the crap out of each other, intentionally or unintentionally, and other people get caught in the crossfire. That's basically every single episode, and there's nothing different.
Well, what can you do about a Rabbids TV show when the Rabbids video game is nothing more than just a bunch of mini games?
Exactly.
I understand.
That's their problem.
I understand making a video game-based TV show out of Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Captain N, Star Fox, Kirby. I understand those. But
yeah, because you can actually do something with those.
Yes, but the Rabbids...
You could even do something with Rayman.
Yes, why didn't they create a cartoon based on Rayman? That would have been...
Nickelodeon likes trends.
Yeah, that's exactly...
Anymore. That's the problem with them.
Yeah, Nickelodeon are not innovators, they're just imitators.
Yeah, and that's the reason that people I think one of my favorite stories about New Nickelodeon is an interview that's online of Simon Zargami. I don't even care if I pronounce her name wrong. They went to a classroom, like a kindergarten classroom, and they showed, they pre-screened a Nick Jr. show for a bunch of kids. Basically, they wanted to see, how they would take to it. So, about halfway through, she said everybody in the class walked out, except for one kid who stayed until the end. And when he came up to her, he said, "I would rather pick my nose than watch that again." These are kindergarten kids, by the way. Preschool kids. So that gave me a little bit of hope for the new generation. At least they could see, sometimes when you're a preschool kid, you just watch what's shoved in front of you, and they didn't.
Yeah, a similar story happened in 1989, in which they were showcasing what the new Nicktoons were going to be. And one of the original 8 pilots that were featured on was was called the Crowville Chronicles, in which it's about a crow who fought crime. And a lot of kids thought it was so boring. One of the kids said, "I would rather watch The Wall than watch your cartoon." And you know what? Nickelodeon never picked it up. They decided to pick up Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy Show. Now, if it was today's Nickelodeon, they wouldn't care if they said that. They would just release it and hope that somebody else would like it.
That's basically what Nickelodeon goes by anymore. That's their thought process, and it really is a shame. It really is a shame to see that they don't even, because even I watch reviews of the Mysterious Mr. Enter and such. Breadwinner's pilot was not popular. It, to this day, only has, 130,000 views on it. Nickelodeon must have just, and the creator of it only made it to entertain other animators. He made it as, a joke. He literally made it as, just something to be a joke. And Nickelodeon came to him with money in hand and said, "Hey, we think that a show about ducks delivering bread could be something." And it's just where is your thought process with that? You know what they saw? They saw a tall, more collected person with a smaller, more annoying-voiced, more foolhardy one together doing something. They saw a regular show. That's what they saw. That is what they saw with this. And with the animation differences, they saw Amazing World of Gumball. They didn't see originality. They saw a cash-in. That is what they saw with Breadwinners, and I will always say that.
All right, just a few more questions, and then we can wrap this up.
Okay, sure thing.
Why do you think people tend to look back on shows as opposed to trying out new ones?
Well, for some, it's nostalgia. And for some, they just grew out of cartoons and they stopped watching. And for those people, I understand. I understand growing out of cartoons and not watching them anymore because they get bad or they just grow out of your taste and then it's hard to get back into them. For the people of nostalgia, it's just not giving anything a chance. It's after that period of 2006, 2007, they just said everything's bad. Even before then, some people, just everything's bad, nothing is good anymore, it'll never be good, and they just are in constant denial with themselves, and I never want to be that. I never want to be that person who is just looking back at the 90s and nothing else, or looking back or saying to myself, I'm going to be too old to watch a cartoon. I'm never going to be that. Like, people say, oh, you're too old to watch cartoons, or, maybe you don't like these cartoons because you're older and you just grew out of the humor, and that couldn't be further from the truth. People who say that infuriate me. I hate that thinking. You can never be too old to enjoy an animated cartoon or an animated movie, ever. I always go by the quote, if you just market yourself to kids, you might as well be dead. And that was Walt Disney who made that quote. I think he knew a thing or two about appealing to all audiences. But I can see the logic, I can see the thinking behind it. Like, I know not everybody likes Adventure Time. I know not everybody likes regular show or Cartoon Network at all. But it's nice to at least see that the majority of people on my page even do. Like, when I posted my Clarence review and my Steven Universe reviews or my Adventure Time thoughts, and I see a lot of positive comments, I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy to see that people are seeing, a good or silver lining in cartoons, which is basically, at the moment, Adventure Time and what it's created. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that people are always like, there are some things in the 90s that are great, and there are still some things that I would like to see brought back if given the chance. But it's just some people don't like change at all. Some people just hate change, and they're not used to it, and this is kind of like the new generation of, like, change, basically. Like, like, when we were in the 90s, and we were the new generation, and, people would talk about how great it was in the 70s and 80s, and now that's all gone. We never really thought about how it would happen to us, and now that it has happened to us, a lot of us don't know how to deal with it. Some of us don't know how to deal with it. Like, sometimes you just have to accept change and move on, but some cling to the past and, like, refuse to let it go. And it's a shame, but again, I'm just glad to see, like, that a lot of people do see that it's going all right. It's going okay. There is hope for animation, definitely in, like, Steven Universe, and you see episodes like that. And Clarence. I really like Clarence. There's a lot of promise with that show. I see, like, bits of Hey Arnold, bits of Ed, Edd n Eddy in that show. It has a lot of potential. And it's just shows like that give me hope for animation. And just to say that, hey, not everything in the 90s was great. A lot of it was, but, shows like Clarence and shows like Adventure Time and shows like that, in my opinion, they beat out shows in the 90s. Like, a lot of them. Not all of them, but they are good shows that really have climbed up the animation ladder. And yeah, I mean, like, again, it's like, I understand if people grow out of them, and I understand the nostalgia factor, but not everything is bad anymore. Like, it's not 2007, 2006, Fanboy and Chum Chum's dead, Planet Sheen's dead, Breadwinners hopefully will be dead. There's some good stuff to watch.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, just going back to what I was saying previously, nobody knows what they want. We always say that we want to see our favorite shows back, but when they do come back, people always complain about that it's not as good as the original. Like when Figure It Out came back with a remake, everybody hated it because it wasn't the original. And I stated that it was even better than the original, and people still hate me about that.
An example I can think of is the Powerpuff Girls reboot that they tried. Like, when that came back, nobody liked it. And I really didn't like it either. Like, I looked at it from an analytical point of view, and I just didn't like it at all. Like, it wasn't really the animation that I hated. It was just, I didn't like the story that it told. It didn't feel like Powerpuff Girls to me. I can understand change, like, when something comes back and it's different, people don't like it. Like, why did the animation change? Why did the voice change? Why? Why is everything... some people hate just the smallest margins of change. That's just how it is for some people.
Well, actually, that's how it is for most people.
Yeah.
For most people, they always cling to the past. And a lot of people, they complain that the new stuff isn't good. But when the new stuff is good, and they always complain about, oh, it's not as good as what, the shows that I grew up with as a kid. Let's be honest, a lot of the shows that you grew up with as a kid is nowhere near as good as you think it is.
Yeah, it's true. Like, some shows hold up perfectly. Like, Hey Arnold holds up perfectly to this day. Rugrats holds up pretty well.
To some extent.
Rugrats holds up okay. Like, the movies hold up all right, but
I would say the second one somewhat, but other than that, the first and the third movie has major issues.
Rocko's Modern Life's humor holds up pretty well. If anything, Rocko's Modern Life's humor only grew, like, as we got older and understood it even more. SpongeBob season 1 to 3 hold up pretty well. The rest of SpongeBob, not so much.
No.
Ren and Stimpy's animations holds up pretty well. The stories are the stories. You know, Ren and Stimpy's all random and such like that. Vader Zim holds up really well. I think that's one of the reasons that it's still as popular as it is to this day, because the animation and the stories and just the characters hold up. They even just despite the fact that it was only on Nick for a short time. Avatar: The Last Airbender holds up really well. That's no surprise.
And it's funny because coming next year, that show's going to be celebrating its 10th anniversary.
It honestly looks like the animation came out yesterday. Other shows, like some shows like that came out in like the 90s and even the 80s hold up really well. It all just depends on it depends on the cultural, it depends on the modern day references, it depends on the cultural references, and it honestly just depends on the animation. Like, some of them hold up extremely well. Some of them don't. Fanboy and Chum Chum didn't hold up when it came out. But, it's just stuff like that. Some shows hold up, some don't. That's just how it is.
And other shows are products of their time. Like, if you were to look back on Rocket Power, it definitely stays in the 90s.
Basically, unless you're, people who really like skateboarding or, the X Games,
Even then, it still feels like it's 90s.
It does. Even though I still find enjoyment out of it. The more relatable ones, As Told by Ginger is High School. That one's easy to relate to, and Hey Arnold, just, average problems, and Rugrats is, being a baby, It's just, sometimes the shows that are relatable just know how to click with an audience more and have that, test of time that's put against them, and they pull through it, and they still do.
And then you have others that try to copy off of it without trying to delve into originality, is the ones that most people pretty much forget about. Like we mentioned in part 3 of Nick at 35, pretty much every single live-action show that tried to copy off of Clarissa Explains It All, nobody remembers.
Yeah, it's a shame that some do that, but, it's called a cash-in, honestly.
Yeah, and then in the late 90s, any show that wasn't created by Dan Schneider or Mike Tomlin or Brian Robbins, they pretty much fell into the wayside.
They still do, too, as well.
Not even the 90s are all that acknowledges them.
Yeah, and even the shows that still try that, like Thundermans and Haunted Hathaways and Every Which Way, even though that was just a short series. Sam and Cat, even Dan Schneider's getting tired of his own work, I think.
Well, that's what happens when you use people too much. Like Klasky Chupo. To be quite honest, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, every show that they created after Rugrats, they just seemed to get more and more tired. All Real Monsters, it was their second show, and it was pretty decent. Rocket Power, Wild Thornberries, All Grown Up, it just, that their resources are pretty much running out. And unfortunately, the same thing is happening with Butch Hartman. Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, Tough Puppy, all the movies that he had to do, and not to mention that he's creating another show after, Tough Puppy is going to be over. So, his resource...
Really? What show's that going to be?
I don't know. It's supposed to be some sort of pilot. I read about it in an article. Yeah, even he's going to do something else. So, yeah.
I guess time will honestly tell. Who knows, honestly. I think Butch Hartman's also, he needs a bit of... I think he needs a bit of a break, too.
Yeah,
it's just, I think Klasky Chupo has had enough of a break where I can go back to them and say, What are you guys doing now?
Well, I've looked at their pilots on YouTube, and they're kind of mediocre. The one that really irritated me is the one that they tried so hard to rip off Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, yeah, I don't think Klasky Chupo's ready to come back.
Oh, time will tell. Again, we'll just see what happens, honestly. Yeah, that's all you can really say.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know what? I mean, things are looking up for animation. You know, Cartoon Network, they, recently fired the president who was in charge of all those live action shows. And Disney Channel, they have Disney XD, and they have a lot of good shows over there. Even though Motor City and Tron Uprising was canceled before they were reaching their prime, they still have pretty good shows like Gravity Falls, Phineas and Ferb, Wander Over Yonder. And
as for Nick, I don't really know how good. I don't know about Bad Seeds and Pig Goat Banana Cricket, but, at least they're trying some new Nicktoons. That's all I can say. Like, I hope that they're at least halfway decent.
Yeah, I hope they're halfway decent as well. Okay, now final thing. Where do you see the future in your Facebook page?
Honestly, I hope it only continues to go up. I hope that people only continue to come and like the page and see what I have to offer, and just basically just keep doing what I'm doing, see how many, how long that, how big I can get, if I can get as big as the Nickelodeon logo, or, even surpass, because I honestly didn't even think I could get 23K, so now that I realize that I have so many fans, and, they all agree with me, and they're all behind me, just, see where we can go from here, and, have fun doing it.
Yeah. And you recently listed off your favorite Nickelodeon shows. What are your favorite Cartoon Network and Disney Channel shows?
Oh, boy. See, I usually have to take a few, to think that over. Like, Disney Channel, I couldn't tell you right now. Like, I could tell you, shows that I like, but I don't know if I could put them in, an order. Again, all the Disney animated shows, Kim Possible was good, Proud Family, DuckTales was fun, what else? Darkwing Duck was good, Gargoyles was good, just all those shows, the classic Disney Channel shows. Cartoon Network, of course, you had Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, of course. So many great shows, on both networks. If I ever did a list of both, I would have to really sit and think about it.
Sure. I can't wait to see that list. Alright, well, I guess that should be it for this episode of Casual Chats. Would you mind promoting your Facebook page one more time?
Yes, it's facebook.com at the Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon. If you aren't a fan, come over and give it a like. I promise you won't be disappointed. We have plenty of content, plenty of different memes, plenty of different pictures and stuff to do. So I hope you can come on over and give us a like if you haven't, and have some fun.
Okay, well, that should be it for this episode of Casual Chats. Clint, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we hope to see you around soon on another episode, so hopefully we'll catch you in the next one. So, bye-bye.